you can collateralize stake ETH up to 110% with at least 10% more collateral than the Bitcoin you borrow in return. The Bitcoin you borrow, it's not backed by Bitcoin. Again, it's a synthetic Bitcoin that gets minted at the moment of, almost basically like DAI, basically like LUSD, basically like, Frax and a few others. It's just that the stable coin is Bitcoin. And it has another wonderful advantage is that it's actually free to borrow.
Quick one, nothing here is financial advice. It's for entertainment and educational purposes only. Always do your own research or speak to a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Enjoy the episode and like and subscribe.
Welcome back, everyone. Our guest today is Saj. He's from BadgerDAO. For anyone who's been in DeFi for any amount of time would have known or heard about Badger. Saj kind of like taking over leadership, I think, quite recently. Does a bit of everything, it seems, within the confines of BadgerDAO. So yeah, we're going to dive deep into a protocol that's been around for a long time, focuses on Bitcoin, on the EVM. Saj, welcome. A little intro.
Thanks for having me.
A little intro
Sure.
from you. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, 100%. So thanks for the introduction. Thanks for having me. Well, I'm Saj. I joined BadgerDAO more or less about a month after the launch of the DAO. Well, my background is on electrical engineering actually, and I focused on heavily on power systems. So nothing to do with of course crypto, but really software development. I had done a little bit in school and a few internships and whatnot. I was definitely interested in it. But my biggest passion actually relied on renewable energy and power systems. I worked a little bit on that until the pandemic. It was during that time that I realized I wasn't really getting this fulfillment. I wasn't contributing to society in the ways that I always foresaw for myself. A friend of mine talked to me about crypto. He was my pull into the ecosystem. He gave me the pill, and I was just fascinated by the potential of it. The blockchain, starting from there, from a technical perspective, the idea of the democratization of finances, the opportunities it could bring to people. Then I realized that my passion wasn't about renewable energy, but rather technology that can help change people's lives. And I found that with crypto and blockchain and the potentials of DeFi, like with nothing else before. So I quit my job. Fortunately, he was part of one of the early co-founders, early seeders of Badger. He connected me with the team. I had been learning Solidity for a little while before, and they needed some help with quality assurance. So I jumped on board to support on that front. Testing and working in QA for smart contracts led me then to start, to get involved with the development of smart contracts and some Solidity work, and was involved in some of the development of the early products of Badger, some of the strategies for the vaults. That from there I learned that I had an interest and passion for more of the product side of things, also the more people side of things. I started to get involved with some management, responsibilities, and then product thinking. As we then embarked on the eBTC journey, I started to become that bridge between the technical and the product sides. With a couple of the co-founders, Spada and Dap, started to get into this more product thinking, architecting space for eBTC, the protocol. Things progressed in that direction, and after some shifts and changes internally, I ended up taking over product leadership, and that's where I'm standing right now.
Cool, great intro, and thanks for sharing that. I think a lot changed for a lot of people during COVID. I mean, I'm here from that time as well, like full time. I'd also been in crypto before, but not to the extent that I gave up my job and started doing this. And I mean, obviously, with this kind of like, the longer you're in crypto, obviously a lot goes on, whether it's wrong or right. Obviously, it's like, and for a protocol to be around after 3 years is like, I mean, that's a feather in your cap. And you guys obviously have seen a lot. You've been through a lot. Just kind of like give us a little bit of a background in terms of like, where you guys started out with your intention. So I want to just focus like primarily of the intention that Badger had when you guys started to how, things are now and how things have changed. I mean, I know that's massive question, but try and keep it as short as you can, because I'm sure we could probably chat about that for hours. But I just want to get an idea, and obviously allow for the listeners to get a good idea as to, you know, this journey that you guys have been on.
Well, for sure. You said it. It's been one of challenges and extreme emotions, but a fun one for sure. Well, it started off in the late 2020. It's been a while. A group of people led by Spada Boom, Dap Whisper, and a few others gathered with the hopes, with the dream and actually the realization that there's a need of bridging the gaps between these two big assets and ecosystems, Bitcoin and Ethereum, to begin with, valuing Bitcoin, the asset, and everything that, of course, it represents, in the market, the interest, the financial interest behind it, realizing that there was a big group of people that were potentially interested in doing some more interesting stuff with it. So the drip began with the mission of bringing Bitcoin to DeFi, driving value to Bitcoin, financializing Bitcoin, allowing for it to do more interesting stuff. It started with multiple, you could say, experiments, as it all was back in those DeFi summer days. We doubled down and focused mostly on yield aggregation for Bitcoin. So kind of playing the Yearn playbook, build vaults and strategies to put Bitcoin to work, drive some yield to it. Went through a phase in which we got very involved with the incentives ecosystem and the VE tokenomic ecosystems, driving some yield aggregation and liquid votes for these voting assets. BBCVX, Graviora, we got involved in those two ecosystems to drive yield to Bitcoin. So we tried multiple things, and at the end of the day, we were building products for the wrap Bitcoin yield, the different flavors of Bitcoin that you could find in the environment, and that gave us a lot of lessons. For a while, it was interesting. It was attracting lots of capital, lots of interest. We realized that there was an appetite for it to an extent, but it also showed us that it wasn't really sustainable, as we know from these tokenomic systems. There's an end to it, so we had to that was part of the reason we had to pivot a little bit. In that effort, we also embarked in different other approaches to this mission. We worked with a group to build a bridge for Bitcoin. So using the Ren VM, we built a bridge that, for Ren BTC, wrap Bitcoin. So try to get involved in that piece as well, right? Try to make it easier for people to bring their Bitcoin to DeFi, to put it to work in some of our products. We also tried a rebasing Bitcoin, trying to get into the synthetic Bitcoin space as well with innovation. That was a whole experiment of its own. Yield-bearing Bitcoin as well, that turned out to have its pros and cons. Ended up being dependent on this Ren VM, experiment and project that, as it failed, that followed a little bit. So lots of lessons learned in that process. Lots of discoveries about the realities of the Bitcoin DeFi space. At these early stages, of course, that means a whole other thing nowadays. We could talk about that, but I guess that's how things started and how things went for the first year and a half.
So, I mean, there's obviously a lot to talk about, especially from kind of like this whole idea of Bitcoin as DeFi, or as people are calling it now, Bitcoin DeFi. And it's really interesting. And I didn't know this. I always knew that you guys had an interest in Bitcoin, but I didn't realize that you guys were the ones who were not only interested in Bitcoin, you were taking this whole idea of capturing that value on the blockchain, as opposed to just being a vehicle for savings. It's now a vehicle for collateral and interest bearing and all the rest of it. So, which is really cool. I mean, obviously that's where the innovation lies, and clearly a feather in your cap. Just in terms of like the evolution that has been Badger, and where you guys are standing at the moment. What is the mission right now? Obviously you've had the experience that you've had, but where are you guys now, and where does the future take you guys from this point onwards?
Yeah, well, You said it. We were trying to focus on making Bitcoin more interesting, financializing it, allowing people to do more stuff with it without well, with the hopes of it being a path that require less trust assumptions to be taken. Because the alternatives were to give up away custody of your Bitcoin, and that would justify the whole purpose of it, right? Um, but the thing is, at the core of our approach was the use of synthetic assets that require you to give up custody of your Bitcoin. So that kind of defined the whole aspect of and the whole purpose of it. Plus, we realized that there was no sustainable there's no sustainable yield on Bitcoin for Bitcoin. And there was these growing and emerging alternatives in the DeFi space that were very attractive and very useful tools and promising for the future of DeFi. You had the money markets, the CDP systems, the stable coins, in a few other cases. Liquid staking is a big one. So true use cases, market fit was being found in the ecosystem. Yield, sustainable yield was occurring, but Bitcoin, wasn't able to tap into it. And we can fabricate ways of doing, kind of doing that, but he had to be through a some sort of custody solution. And we took the reality pill as well and say, hey, if we want to build DeFi, let's actually build DeFi. Let's do something that aligns with the values of the people that is holding this precious asset, right? And at least for as much as possible. So that led to the ideation creation of our new focus, eBTC. But actually, before getting into that, I should say that it also led to the discarding of everything else we were doing before. We had some vaults running and aggregating yield, and it was somehow attractive and in a few cases actually still generating revenue through the bear, but it wasn't aligned with this vision. The tech debt that it carried was too much operational hassle and maintenance required for it on that side, and of course it wasn't also aligned with his vision. He had some sort of management component to it, independency that it wasn't aligned with his ethos. So we discarded, we deprecated these products. We deprecated the bridge, IBBTC, and everything else really we were focused on, and spent we took a step back, spent a few 18 months doing some heavy research, ideating, brainstorming, actually going to the product board for a change, not pursuing the latest and shiniest, but actually trying to find that sustainability and market fit. And that's where eBTC emerged. Can go into the details of eBTC now, or I can pause there.
So, I mean, how do you come to terms with, the prospect that, obviously resides within Bitcoin and what you guys have built in terms of packaging something that can obviously go out into the public and can be utilized. We've always had Wrap BTC on the EVM platform. You guys have obviously in the process, I think, or have introduced a new product, which is essentially somehow a version of Wrap BTC, as in eBTC. Can you just explain to us what that's all about and how, how that now comes into light in, obviously in terms of the journey that you guys have traveled?
For sure. Yeah, it's live. It's been live since the end of March. March 26th was the launch. eBTC comes to life as a way of fulfilling this mission, providing a alternative for Bitcoin fans on DeFi that has way less trust assumptions, trust implications on it. It's capital efficient in different ways, but it actually opens up, its design opens up a whole new variety of opportunities. It's a whole different realm than just a wrapper. And let me explain. eBTC is the most capital efficient and cheapest place to borrow Bitcoin in the world. It's more than an asset. The asset is part of it, but it's actually a protocol. It's the aim is for it to be a primitive, really. It's a CDP system. You can think of it as basically your maker, your liquidity. It's a stable coin CDP system, collateral deposition system, in which that allows you to collateralize an asset and then borrow this debt asset in return. The debt asset, instead of being a USD peg stablecoin, is a Bitcoin peg stablecoin, quote unquote. I know that's a heavy word and has many connotations, but it is a stablecoin. It is a synthetic Bitcoin, not backed by Bitcoin, but backed solely by state ETH, Lido state ETH. So it's novel in its own approach to developing synthetic assets. It is very capital efficient, and the reason for this is because the only collateral is ETH, and actually a yield-bearing version of ETH, state ETH, and because Bitcoin and ETH are so correlated through very in-depth risk assessment, conducted with RiskDAO and a few other collaborators, we realized that this correlation was actually very beneficial for stability, for pegging purposes, for liquidation, protection. Therefore, through some modeling work, we realized that a 110% collateralization ratio was achievable. This means that you can collateralize state ETH up to 110% with at least 10% more collateral than the Bitcoin you borrow in return. The Bitcoin you borrow, it's not backed by Bitcoin. Again, it's a synthetic Bitcoin that gets minted at the moment of, almost basically like DAI, basically like LUSD, basically like Frax and a few others. It's just that the stablecoin is Bitcoin, and it has another wonderful advantage is that it's actually free to borrow. To an extent, with an asterisk there, there's no interest rate, there's no opening fee, there's no closing fee. The only way the protocol makes revenue is by taking a share of the underlying yield of state ETH. It's we call it the protocol yield share. This is let's say state ETH is yielding let's say 5%, and in the protocol yield share it's set at 50%. Then 2.5 of that goes to the protocol, and the other one it's kept on the collateral. The collateral keeps growing, therefore your position is becoming healthier and healthier as time goes. You have no really deadline to pay your debt. You can pay whenever you want, and you can do multiple interesting things with it.
Okay, so I'm dying to ask the question: why name it BTC then if it's not backed by BTC?
Oh, because it follows the price of BTC. It is a representation of it's a representation of Bitcoin and DeFi. Through some pegging mechanisms, in the same way that the DAI, well, to an extent, is now backed by the US dollar, but at the beginning, DAI was backed by ETH and only ETH, and it was still tracking the value of the US dollar. eBTC tracks the value of Bitcoin. The way it does it is because when you borrow, you're not interested about the USD prices here and there. You're interested about the ratio between ETH and Bitcoin. You borrow collateralizing Ether, and your debt is denominated in Bitcoin. So it's always Bitcoin, and it keeps a peg with Bitcoin, and up to this date, it's been a very tight peg with really minimal deviations. It has been actually one of the strongest pegged Bitcoin assets in the industry in the past 3, almost 4 months since it was launched, and it does it through some interesting mechanisms that we can go into. I'm happy to chat about how this is performed.
Yeah, I'd like to do that, but before we do, I'm just really curious. In terms of the mechanism around borrowing. So, is there like essentially like the standard borrowing metrics that you'd have in terms of liquidation and the rest of it? How does that kind of like fit into the whole equation? Like if I put down collateral that is ETH based, so I'm assuming I need my collateral. The ETH collateral is ETH based, or is it Bitcoin based as well?
It's ETH based for the time being, at least. Yeah. The only collateral accepted is state ETH. So Lido state ETH. You put that in. You choose your to your point exactly. You choose your risk parameters. You could call them your collateralization ratio, which then determines your liquidation price. And let's make emphasis that this liquidation price is in terms of Ether and Bitcoin, right? It's in terms of that ratio. It's in terms of how valuable is Ether with respect to Bitcoin, because they're so correlated. It doesn't move that much. It doesn't move as much as these assets with respect to the dollar. So it tends to be a safer position. So far, there has been no liquidations, but there could be if the price of Bitcoin grows with respect to Ether, or Ether decays with respect to Bitcoin enough so that it goes beyond your liquidation price, then your position is said to be open for liquidation, and the market will take care of it, basically.
Yeah, okay. So that's very useful to know. And it's also interesting to note that there haven't been liquidations to this date. I mean, I see that you guys kind of like at the height of the last bull market, had this massive TVL, and I mean, your TVL's really not bad at the moment. I think you guys are around 35 million at the moment. Is there kind of like this interest right now? You know, you mentioned that there was obviously interest, but like right now, in terms of the market where it's at and what Bitcoin's done, are you guys seeing like more people coming in and saying, listen, I want to actually do this on the following parameters, like, you know, obviously scaling it towards Bitcoin/ETH? Is it on the up right now, or is it something that you guys have seen sort of like gradual over the last 6 months? What are the kind of like the demographics like of this product at the moment?
Sure. And just like a clarifying note there, that TVL shown in DeFi Llama is probably the leftover non-withdrawn assets from our former products.
Okay.
The stats around eBTC will be found within the eBTC protocol page of itself.
Okay.
Yeah, can talk to the demographics for sure. It's actually the core aspect of this product is that it serves really two audiences, two main audiences, I would say, because there's potential. It being a primitive, a base layer, it has in being fully composable has a potential for building on top of it. But at the core, the main use case for eBTC, in the same way that you have it for other CDP systems like Maker or Liquidity, is to go long on the collateral asset versus the debt asset. So it allows you in the most capital efficient way to go long Ether against Bitcoin. So basically trading the flipping trade. So you serve that audience, the audience that believes that Ether will outperform Bitcoin, and there's appetite for that. It's been found to be one of the most traded ratios in the industry, but there was just no capital efficient decentralized way of doing it up until now. Of course, you could go with a money market, but that means interest rates, that means way higher collateralization ratios, right? So with eBTC, you can do this in the most capital efficient, cheapest, most decentralized way, right? And in fact, we're about to launch a leverage tool that will allow you to do it in fewer clicks, some sort of automation that will allow you to go up to 10x leverage on Ether against Bitcoin. So that's one use case. But then remember I mentioned how the collateral part of the yield that it's shared with the protocol. Well, the piece that I missed to mention is that yield, is intended to be redirected to incentivize eBTC adoption through of course multiple play in multiple platforms and ways. But the most attractive way we can think of that we're envisioning and actually on the builds and soon to launch as well is through these Bitcoin savings account, you could say. So basically you can redirect some of that yield of the underlying to a savings account in which people can come and deposit eBTC, single-sided, no additional trust assumptions, full self-custody, permissionless, and is getting yield dripped into it in the form of eBTC. So it's a compounding vault, grows your Bitcoin denominated asset, and it's tapping into the Ethereum security layer for yield. So the most sustainable source of yield in the industry. So it's a way in which you can benefit both parties. So people interested in the success of ETH against Bitcoin can take advantage of this by leveraging long and whatnot. And by doing so and introducing ETH into the system, they're actually benefiting Bitcoin holders as well. Because you can come into Ethereum now, deposit, you can swap into eBTC, or you can borrow it. You can deposit it into this vault to be deployed soon, and then tap into a sustainable source of yield, Bitcoin denominated, and just passively earn Bitcoin in a decentralized, sustainable fashion. It's a way in which you can drive that value and attractiveness and sustainability of the security layer of Ethereum to Bitcoin fans and holders.
So what are you guys paying out in yield at the moment? Are you paying out in ETH, USDC, Bitcoin? How are you guys paying out your yield at the moment?
So right now the treasury has a bucket of assets that was devoted for eBTC bootstrapping a long time ago. that it's being used to incentivize liquidity, because the first step is that you incentivize liquidity so that attractive leverage can be performed. Through attractive leverage, you start introducing more collateral to the system that then leads to more yield to be distributed. Right now, our incentives are being paid in the Badger token. And we have a couple pools in the market. Well, a few and more to come, but there's mostly actually an interesting probably play for Bitcoin oriented people. You can pair with wrap Bitcoin, so basically a very low impermanent loss pool on Uniswap and get yield. You can pair it with TBTC from Threshold on Curve and also get a very juicy yield right now on that pool. But as we grow this liquidity, the intention is to enable leverage. Through the use of leverage, the introduction of more collateral to the system, it should grow the potential of yield. Once this savings account is released, and I just don't want to spoil the name, but once it's allowed, which should be in the next month or two, the yield taken from the collateral, of course, it comes in the flavor of ETH, stake ETH, will be then processed into eBTC itself, and then deposited into the vault. So you will be getting Bitcoin yield on your Bitcoin.
Wow, cool. That's actually really innovative. Really like the way that you guys have done that. So in terms of like your geography on the blockchain, I mean, you guys are on Mainnet at the moment, right? Also Arbitrum?
Well, back in the day, we were in a bunch of networks and layer twos.
Yes.
eBTC is only launched on Mainnet for the time being, yeah.
So it's on Mainnet. So in terms of kind of like your presence on other networks, what are you guys doing kind of like from a legacy perspective? I mean, what kind of products do you guys offer from that side of things?
You mean on other networks?
Yes.
For the time being, we went and deprecated everything on all networks, really.
Okay, so you deprecated everything across. Okay, so next question is obviously the importance of Bitcoin DeFi and, you know, the advent and obviously something that I'm really enjoying at the moment is our twos, kind of like from a Bitcoin perspective and side chains. What are your thoughts around kind of like the evolution of that space and obviously the chains that are coming up and, you know, the likes of CoreDAO, which is I think probably the front runner at the moment. I think Botanics is also going to be launching soon. Are you guys interested in being involved in those ecosystems? What's the conversation that you guys are having internally and maybe with even those ecosystems?
Yeah, no, I think it's extremely relevant. It's very cool. I think it's a brilliant thing to happen and to be occurring right now. And it's a interesting question because we're actually going through a process of reevaluating our mission, vision, and in their values in the context of these changes. Right? It had always been about bringing Bitcoin to DeFi, but it seems like DeFi is now going in that direction as well a little bit. I think there'll be space and room for everybody. We're in conversations with some of these players and trying to explore what could be done in collaboration. We're doubling down in BTC, that's for sure. And I think there's still going to be potential for it all. I think for a vast majority of Bitcoin holders that want to do something more interesting to financialize their asset, it's about yield, right? It's about putting it to work and it doing something while they're holding it because it's first and foremost the best store of value, arguably in the world. If it can, and in parallel, also generate some yield for you in a sustainable, such as a persistent fashion, well, that's where we've found most of the appetite to be. So I think this will be achieved, and it's already in the works, or it's already being achieved through Bitcoin staking. Babylon, we've been in conversation with them, and of course, if you drive DeFi ecosystem to build on top of Bitcoin, sooner than later it'll mean, if not already, it'll mean attractive yield for users. So that's definitely something we will want to explore. We're in the process actually of doing so, but we also think that there's a huge untapped opportunity to redirect some of the Ethereum yield and value into Bitcoin, as we are accomplishing with eBTC. So these products and automations coming out soon will make that a lot more obvious. Will make that a lot more seamless for users, and given a preserved peg to Bitcoin, the asset, as we've had so far, and as we continue to secure through more modules and different tools and features built on top of Bitcoin, you should be able to get the same attractive deal within Ethereum still.
So, I mean, for me, it's like really interesting that, you know, there is this kind of like almost migration towards what Lido and obviously Restaked, you know, ETH has done, because we know that it's kind of like been through the motions. It's had its trials and tribulations. What does the prospect of liquid restaking within the context of Bitcoin look like? You know, I mean, probably from a technical level, that's quite an interesting question to ask you, but also practically, you know. So let's look at the technical side and the practical aspects. For me, practically, it seems like an obvious thing that will happen, but technically, how difficult is this something that we'll see in the near, or is it something only in the distant future?
Well, it's definitely a big question. I think as liquid staking occurs in Bitcoin, um, liquid restaking will occur soon after. The playbook is being developed in some of these proof of stake chains, and with the infrastructure being in place and battle tested with some of the new players in the Bitcoin ecosystem, it should come to play in the Bitcoin environment as well.
Yeah.
I don't see why not really. It's but making the most out of that security layer, and Bitcoin has the strongest one. I think as in what can we do with eBTC Badger to tap into that? That's a question mark for sure, but it's something we're exploring.
Yeah, I think it almost seems like that's the next iteration of this thing, you know, like if there is an acceptance of Bitcoin in the context of DeFi, which very much seems to be the case. Once again, just referring to what Core DAO are doing at the moment. There's definitely an appetite. There's definitely TVL coming in, and people are willing to lock their Bitcoin and obviously put it down as collateral. And it's like, okay, well, it's time to stake it and you know, play with it from that point onwards. I mean, obviously security is always going to be the challenge. But I think that's what you guys are here for. You know, it's kind of like, well, how do we work it out and make some mistakes along the way, but hopefully, you know, reach a point where, okay, we've worked it out and now this thing works. And I'm looking forward to that. I think for me, it's an obvious place to be. I love the fact that you guys are bringing Bitcoin into an Ethereum kind of mindset. You know, it really just messes with the maxis on both sides. I love that. And then secondly, it's practical. You know, it's like it really does solve a whole lot of problems, or rather, it adds a whole lot of solutions to, you know, this idea of being able to borrow off the back of and leverage and the rest of it. So it's great to see that you've also taken a consideration to the degens, who like to obviously get very risk orientated. In terms of the kind of like the technical aspect, just going back to eBTC, give you an opportunity to kind of like look at the, you know, you obviously have touched on it already, but I want to just get almost like a summary of, you know, how does eBTC now as a product go into, say, for example, another ecosystem, or, you know, how do you now take it into Arbitrum or all these other ecosystems? Like if you guys want to expand your business per se, is it an easy process? I mean, what does that look like for you guys into the future?
Yeah, that's a great question, and also again very timely. We're in the process of defining this cross chain strategy. I think there's multiple routes, different CDP systems, which is really what our protocol, who a protocol can relate to the most in terms of architecting and different dynamics. Have done it in multiple ways, but mostly in two ways. People have either redeployed their system in these other chains with the same asset, the same debt asset, so the same stablecoin, you could say. You can just bridge it. You can do that through a messaging protocol, through a bridge, or you can redeploy as well, but then with a separate asset, a new stablecoin, you could say, with a different name, completely independent. We're in the process of identifying the best path for that. There is a potential of attaining further stronger alignment with the different chains by, using a different collateral type on different chains that is better aligned with the ethos and the vision of the chain that where it's sitting. There's so what we're envisioning, and that it shouldn't be too complicated. The eBTC code base has been audited about 6 times, including Code Arena and bug bounties. We double down on security on this one. It's made up of fully immutable smart contracts with very minimized governance control. Most of the governance is only around stability parameters that are informed by our, you could say, advisory group called Balco. Is a combination of Block Analytica and Stakehouse, which they call themselves stablecoin nerds. They're like really big into providing scalability and stability to stablecoins. So we're developing kind of like a playbook, kind of like a the package on the core stablecoin model, so that we can then rinse and repeat. After that, I think the course of action will be to redeploy in the chains, either by preserving the same debt assets, so the same eBTC token that can be then moved around through a messaging protocol or a combination of them, and but the core of the system will be the same. So you'll be able perhaps to borrow eBTC on, let's say, Arbitrum with staked ETH as well. That will probably be the course of action to move to other chains. We are definitely discovering a higher appetite for the yield-bearing part of the protocol than the borrowing aspect of it for sidechains. Sidechains mostly. We're finding that the DeFi ecosystem on L2s is very similar to in terms of interests and a customer archetype than the one you find in Mainnet. So yeah, that's been on the works and defined. It's one of the highest priorities for sure, and to get to these major L2s and some of the major layer ones, and it'll probably be in that fashion.
So I mean, you've spoken about kind of like the evolution of the product itself, which is also like really cool to see, because it's like, well, this thing works, we know it works, and now we want to make it a lot more interesting for users, and the product market fit. Are you confident that you have found a product market fit in eBTC in its current form? I would assume that you have, and that's the reason why you're looking at a leveraged product as well. And how soon till the leveraged product is in circulation?
Yeah, in terms of product market fit, I believe we found it. There's definitely a huge appetite for this specific trade, and there's just no better place to do it. I think bootstrapping to the point in which it's attractive to big players will take some time. It's a little bit of a chicken and an egg situation. You need the liquidity to make leverage feasible at scale, but then as leverage gets enabled and people play with it, liquidity gets a little bit depleted, and so it needs to grow. So there's strategic moves that we're playing to try to grow this liquidity profile in depth, so that the leverage product becomes more and more appealing to the already active users in the huge volume that is occurring in other places. Of course, some other people may also be interested on giving eBTC to prove itself in terms of liquidness and peg stability, because one of the core aspects of going long and doing these leverage trades on chain is that the asset that you're doing it with must remain pegged, so that at the time that you want to close your position, you don't have to also consider whether or not it's going to be at peg, right? There's that assumption that it'll be, and that's why it makes sense, right? So far it's been 3-4 months, so it's reasonable to think that some of the most sophisticated users are definitely giving it some time to develop its liquidness and peg stability profile. But that's being achieved. We're also introducing, at least designing a module that will help strengthen the peg if it's needed in the future, because of course, as you enable leverage and more volume starts to run through the protocol and its liquidity, the price, you may start to see a little bit more of price action. There's already some very, very important key mechanisms to introduce hard pegs on the coin, but it can be strengthened even further through the addition of we call it the BSM, which is similar to Maker's PSM,
Yes.
the peg stability module. It's been designed, we'll have some adjustments to it, but the idea will be to allow for a portion of eBTC to be collateralized by a hard peg Bitcoin asset. So you could say a wrapped Bitcoin per se. You can go for TBTC, wrapped Bitcoin, combination of both, right? By doing so, you can introduce a one-to-one swap that then will create an obvious and very instant arbitrage opportunity as soon as the coin depegs a tiny bit, right? This hasn't been introduced. It's been designed and should be ready to deploy for as soon as it's needed, if it ever is needed. It may not. So far, there hasn't been a hint of that, right? So to go back to your question, sorry,
No
it's about
worries.
making it grow, right? I think as it grows, leverage will be a lot more attractive. And to finally respond to the second part is yes, this leverage feature under design should be good to go as of next week, and that may be the case. So we're seeing a little, maybe a week or two from now for it to be launched. So what would that be? Beginning of August of 2024, we should be enabling one-click seamless leverage on Bitcoin and Ether versus Bitcoin up to 10x. That would be the value proposition there.
Why should I use BadgerDAO in terms of doing what it is that you guys are doing? You know, why should I not just go to a central exchange and open an ETH BTC position there and
Super
be on
fair.
leverage?
No, that's a great question. If you're interested on trading the flipping, you want to go long on ETH versus Bitcoin. First of all, even against some of the centralized exchanges, eBTC offers higher capital efficiency. The 110% collateralization ratio, because it's the only focus of the protocol, it can achieve that, right? If we had a diversified pool of collateral types, maybe through PEC management and economic policy, risk management, you would have to be more conservative. But because it's only these two assets and it's only this ratio that the protocol relies on, is built around, you can achieve that super high capital efficiency. 110%. It's 40% lower than the next on chain, and that's the other part of it. You're doing this because you believe on the ethos of Ether and Bitcoin at the center of it is censorship persistence, trustlessness, permissionlessness. We all know, and we are very well aware of how we went last time with putting too much trust on centralized players. Not saying they're all doing the kind of stuff that these guys were doing back then, but that risk, it's there, right? With eBTC, that risk is basically minimized as much as you can, and you can find in DeFi. Reliance on oracles, reliance on the collateral asset, but these are way more decentralized already themselves, and in altogether, it's substantially more decentralized and more trustless than anything you can find off chain. Of course, you don't have to give custody of your asset to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, the best answer that a DeFi Max you could possibly give you. So yeah, thanks for that. And I completely agree. I mean, that is ultimate value proposition. Is that's autonomous, obviously independence from anything or anyone else.
That's. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
To add to that, it was a little bit that as well that inspired the design of eBTC. It was around that time as well that we realized, hey, it was the Terra Luna crash and then FTX soon after. We said, hey, what are we doing here, right? If we have this tech that is enabler for fantastic use cases on trustlessness, and it can actually empower people that have no option but to trust, and that trust leads to abuse. And if we're not providing this alternative, if we're not building the alternative, what are we doing, right? You have the option to build a smart contract to, of course, keep full control over it, keep custody of the assets within it. We're not doing that back then, but we had upgradable contracts, and we were playing it too safe in that sense. But at the end of the day, you have to do the work, you have to do the diligence, you have to go through the security rigor, and that's what maybe the previous bull run wouldn't allow you to do. You had so much hype and so much urgency for deployment. We were always very security focused, especially in the Web3 side of things, always going through the right audits and process. And we would never rush that part for sure. But we always had that upgradability. We always had that potential of tweaking here and there, right? eBTC is fully immutable, and that's why it went through this much of security rigor. On top of the 6 audits, we have risk management. We have continuous risk management over the parameters, and it'll be in posterity. But we can actually say, and we can offer a product that minimizes trust as much as you can in DeFi to enable sustainability and scalability.
Yeah, I just completely agree with you. I mean, it's what DeFi is about at its very core. Future for Badger. I mean, obviously you guys have got this interesting leverage product that I think is going to be hugely popular. What else? I mean, what else is kind of cooking in the kitchen? Can you tell us? Is there a bit of alpha for us on the show?
Well, yeah. Starting from the 3 products that I already mentioned, there's leverage coming up. There's I'll just say it, STBTC, Bitcoin, the best Bitcoin savings account, more sustainable Bitcoin savings account in DeFi. Potentially a BSM, Bitcoin stability module. There's the plans for going cross-chain with eBTC. That the specifics are TBD, but coming to a conclusion, we should be sharing more specifics in the next couple of months as we start building and integrating. And we already started some conversations with some of these layer 2s and side chains and the key players in them. There's outside of this, that is, I would say, the core product roadmap. There have been some interesting changes and shifts within the Badger organization. This started a while ago, actually, in a little bit around the moment we realized we had to make a transition in terms of our product focus, and we started working on eBTC. We also shifted our organization in the way we collaborate to become more efficient. Badger went through a full-on super open, everything gets decided on snapshot, to a representative democracy. To an extent, we have a treasury council, a community council, the Badger Association, which is a legal body through which we can tackle and become do the actual product development work, technical work, and play the 2 realms, right? A little bit of the contractual stuff and everything required on the legal side. That has empowered us to become a lot more focused, a lot more efficient, led to the focused development of eBTC, do the proper work on market research. On top of that, recent transitions have led us, as I mentioned, to redefining our mission, vision, values. Those are also TBD, are on the works, but there's a lot of interesting, all the big Badgers are putting their heads together and their brains together to find that long-term vision for the protocol. eBTC sets the foundation for it, and I think there's just exciting stuff coming after. It is a primitive, so it allows for many stuff to be built on top. A lot of the focus will be on that, enabling that, empowering that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really interesting. For me, like, my takeaway from this is that, like, a lot of protocols come into DeFi and they don't last. I mean, that's the reality of the situation, is that, they try something, and a lot of the time, the majority of the time, they don't succeed. And, there's, for example, treasuries, for example, just land up kind of like essentially being rugged, and people walk away with them. And what I've seen with the true hardcore valuable protocols, irrespective of what happens, they stick it out. I mean, there's a lot of examples of that as well, like where things didn't necessarily work, but they're still around, they're still providing some kind of value. But what I see with you guys is, like, we've been around for a while, we've gotten a whole lot of stuff right, we've gotten a whole lot of stuff wrong, we've learned, we're willing to keep going on this thing, and we'll do what's necessary to actually be more creative, more relevant, and more importantly, trying to actually make a difference in the space. That's what I'm getting from you. I mean, it's like, that's my honest opinion. And I think it's really cool. Like, it's cool to see it in action, but more importantly, people need to realize this isn't an easy space. it's actually really tough, and it's like even tougher to stay honest, to keep your integrity, and to actually do things with that transparency and with that ethos that DeFi actually demands of you, and it's like, so hats off to you guys for doing that. I'm sure it's not always easy. I mean, the infrastructure is there for it to be easy, but obviously practice is never the same as, kind of the theory of things. But it seems like you guys have gotten a handle on it. And all I can say is best of luck. It's great to see that there is kind of like another chapter in the life of Badger, as opposed to walking away and just saying, well, fuck it, we're not going to do this. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And not just for you guys, but for all these DeFi protocols that just refuse to walk away because, well, what else am I going to do? I'm going to take a whole lot of money and then what? What am I going to do? Like clean a boat, on a beach. How long am I going to be happy doing that for? So, cool. It's good to hear that you guys are doing what you're doing. And I really like where Bitcoin DeFi is going. And I've always been a bit of a Bitcoin maxi. I mean, people probably think I'm lying when I say that, but I do. I believe that there's a place for Ethereum, and I also believe that there's a place for Bitcoin. And I'd love to see you guys on like a Bitcoin-centric chain at some point in time. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling a little bit now, but yeah, it's cool to see, and I'm really stoked to hear what you guys have been doing.
Well, I appreciate the comments. It challenging for sure, but what's life without challenges, right? And this is an exciting one. It's an important one as well. It's a we have a potential here to make an impact. We have a chance, all of us, this industry, to actually make a difference in the world. And it's on us to lean into that and actually seize that opportunity. Yes, we're building Bitcoin products in leverage and these crazy sophisticated DeFi financialization of Bitcoin. But at the core of it, we're all together building the foundation of the empowerment of millions, if not everybody, at some point, right? Yeah. I'm an idealistic, as you can tell, and there's many like me and with this kind of vision within the Badger team that have stayed and doubled down and focused on trying to actually take advantage of the value of generated, the community that we have attracted, and all together just try to do something for the best of the protocol, of the ecosystem, and everybody that wants to join.
Yeah, cool. I appreciate that. And you are officially a DeFi maxi as per Blockmates'.
Oh yeah.
Saj, thank you so much for joining us, and yeah, I really sincerely wish you guys all the best. Yeah, keep on fighting the good fight, and look forward to seeing you guys out there. And yeah, look forward to maybe getting you back at some point and checking in on how things have developed, and more importantly, how the scope of your products have grown. So yeah, all the best. Thanks for joining us.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me. Talk soon.
It's an absolute pleasure. Take it easy.
All right, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please give us a like, subscribe, and turn the notification bell on for next time. See ya.